So I'm joined by Chelmsford City Chairman Steve Shaw in response to the suspension of the league season for 2 weeks. First of all, Steve, we had the options given on Wednesday or Thursday to the clubs. For those who didn't see, what did Chelmsford City think of those three options?
I think it was kind of tough. I think the problem for all of it is you almost conclude. There are almost two questions that clubs are facing: is A, do we feel morally or we should be playing or not, and B, if we agree that we are going to continue, then on what basis can we afford to continue? So we've already explained that we didn't think it was right we were continuing to play. We asked for a break back in December when we had all those incidents of COVID, and we knew the pressure was coming on, the local hospitals and things. So said, maybe we should be looking for a 2 or 3 week break just to have a pause and to let the hospitals get on in control. Let's start to see the impact of the lockdown impacting and reducing deaths and hospital people going into hospital before we make a decision. So we very much saw that as a question about the commercials, and as you saw, I think we shared what we thought. The issue was, should we just cease the season? And I'll come, and for us, I think that's the worst option for us. Suddenly I have zero income. I have zero, our commercial activity is starting to pick up. We've got a shirt sponsor. We've got, the EMG Inspire have come on and sponsoring the stadium. And actually a number of people were starting to get interested. We now got a bit of a commercial team who are pushing stuff out there. And suddenly that's pulled from us. So, suddenly we're getting no income, but I still have costs. The point is there are still players to pay. They're all on contract and well, just furlough them. Well, that's all well and good, but there are still costs even if you furlough players. It just doesn't really feel right. But, the non-contract ones, well, let's just let them go. We're building a squad here. I mean, one of the things that Robbie and I have been talking a lot about in the last few weeks has been about signing people up for next year. If you look at the talent we've got in our team at the moment and the way it's going, particularly amongst the younger element, there's some great guys there. We want some stability. So we don't suddenly want to go, right, see you all, we'll talk again come July. We want to keep going. And the momentum we built after the Braintree win and then, the fight back against Billericay, it doesn't really work for us. So somehow I've got to kind of now go and find, how do I pay the January payroll? Yeah. Where's the money going to come from? So we started in October, them saying you're going to get so much money per month. And then we suddenly get to near the end of January and say, oh, sorry, you're not getting any money this month. It's like, well, why don't you tell us this at the start of January? We've known about this £11 million that's been put out there for clubs at this level since, back end of last year. In fact, was it November time we found out? And we get consulted the third week of January. It's just appalling. Some great people at the National League. Colin Peake's done a fantastic job with the COVID response. Amazing job. Steve Brookfield, the accounts guy's been doing a great job with us, and Ollie and Michelle and those guys. We're making great progress. But we've now got to go, well, what are we going to do about paying the players? Are you just, because there's uncertainty? So, furlough, you can claim what, up to 80%. Do I pay them 20% less? Is that what we do? They just have to lump it. I know everybody's taking a bit of pain, but I just think it's just frustrating. And I just don't think it's the right answer. So that's why we were against that. And we were if you're looking purely at the commercial, will continue. And then I think if people have looked at what we've said about the loans situation, I know people are very anti-loans, but reality is the club's not carrying debt anymore. And when you look at the terms that were being proposed, and I don't feel I'm at liberty to talk about those, but it was less than £500 a week. And reality is, I think for us, it would have been less than £200 a week that we'd have to repay. If you consider a club playing at our level, I mean, our budget's, well, I think it's well known, that we were working to, less than £6,000 a week. You know, I think we're at the bottom end, so lots of clubs around the £8,000-10,000 a week. Can they really not afford to play for for 7,800 or 9,800 a week? You know, is 200 really going to make a difference to them? It's £10-20 a week per player, and reality is that's over a 10-20 year period. It's not a big number though when you look at that. And people throw numbers around. Well, it's 10 grand. It's like, honestly, that's 10 grand's a lot of money, but in footballing terms and the amount of money we put into this club, it's not. And so, you know, saying the central funding, I mean, central funding, I think we got about 13,500 last year. So saying, well, that you'll only get 3 or 4, fine. You know, it's really not going to make a difference. We should be pushing more down our commercial route, and we should be really pushing for what the club can do, getting fans back in. You know, we're getting more people involved in media and trying to get that growing, you know, getting more engagement across the club. It just feels that, you know, the rug's being pulled from beneath our feet. So I was kind of comfortable with the club taking the loan. I'm sorry, it wasn't just me, you know, the board, we got the board together once we were asked the question and said, what do we think? And our view was, you know, morally, we think continuing to play is a difficult call. But, you know, commercially, we're happy to do the loan situation. It would help us continue. And I think it's fascinating to know what the actual numbers are. I think people have seen the North. I think of the 22 clubs in the North, there was a letter signed by 12 saying that they didn't want to continue. I kind of thought maybe that was all of them, because if you didn't want to continue, why would you not be happy adding your name to that list? But then we've seen the thing come out from the National League saying it was overwhelming. But they say it's overwhelming. What does that mean? Give us the data. Tell us how many clubs said we want to stop and how many said we want to continue. Just tell us.
I've seen Eastbourne. I've seen Eastbourne, Hungerford, St Albans, Dorking sort of agree with us about carrying on.
Yeah. So, and I think there's more.
Braintree as well.
Yeah.
I saw.
So it's interesting. So that's 6. That's the third of our league. And you kind of go, well, hang on, overwhelming does suggest, you know, like 80-90%. Well, it ain't 80 to 90% in our league. So yes, we need to keep people safe, and that's the moral challenge. And that's why it is kind of hard, and we've adapted the way that we've worked. So it is just the players, you know, you guys are doing a great job, you know, but we've had the minimum number of people going to games. You know, match reports are being done on the basis of watching the stream. It's not people sitting in the ground, you know, and I haven't been to a game. I've been home or away. So because I don't need to be there. So that's where we're trying to focus, is people who don't need to be there aren't there. And everybody else who is there is following the right protocols and is being distanced. So, excuse me, that's why you can tell I feel quite passionately about it, because in 10 days' time, I've got a payroll to run. Yeah. And people expect to get paid full pay because they've worked this month, and where's the money going to come from?
Yeah, and the National League has come up with a 2-week suspension of the season, which doesn't sound very much, but in that period, if they cancel the game against or stop us playing 2 weeks today from Saturday the 23rd against Slough on the 6th of February, we've got 5 games that would have to be rearranged in that period. So what's your opinion on a 2-week suspension?
I don't have a problem. I kind of feel if we know what the outcome is, I think the problem with all these things is it's always, and then we'll tell you again, it's this lack of knowing. They dithered back in March last year and said, you know, we're going to keep going, you know, we're elite sport, and therefore kept going. But, you know, and they seem to be dithering again. I mean, it's all well and good saying I'm going to do some consultation, but people need to, you know, we're looking for leadership. And the decision might go against us, but what people want is certainty and understanding. To be honest, I'm not worried about rearranging 5 games. So, I mean, what have we got left? We got 26 games left. We can play 2 a week for 3 months, April, May, June. You know, fine. push the playoffs back into July. You know, maybe delay the start of the season till September. We didn't start till October this year anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know, just move it around and catch up next year. I don't see it as being a big, you know, if we've got to play 2 games a week, we've got to play 2 games a week.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard. It's going to be hard, particularly when it gets hard ground in the summer. But that's what you got players for.
And have the National League said what needs to happen for our league to restart after this 2 weeks?
I haven't seen anything, Ben. You know, I just got the same email that that we saw came out last night from the National League that people were seeing on Twitter. That's all I've seen. I've seen no more than anybody else has seen at this point in time. Saying we're going to have a 2-week suspension. The National League's continuing, but North and South are going to be suspended for 2 weeks. Interesting, if you read some of the other comments, is people like Gloucester saying we want to keep going, but only if the North and South do as well. We want promotion and relegation. And I think, you know, it's interesting. You look at the teams that want to keep going and the teams that don't. You know, the ones that don't generally towards the bottom or struggling. The ones that want to keep going are the ones that are playing well and want to keep, you know, it's fascinating. So there's so much self-interest. That mean self-interest.
Although we're directly in the middle of the National League South. We're in halfway up, aren't we? So
yeah, and we want to keep going. We're playing well, but we also think it's part of we're a club that wants to keep going. Remember, I'm responding in terms of the commercials here rather than necessarily whether it's right that we keep going or not. And I think again that's a hard one. Some people say, well, I get some enjoyment about it. I always read the I read the soapbox, and you know, I've seen the mixed views on there, and some people, well, it's just a waste of time season. But part of our whole point was about rebuilding, and this season has been very much around building. You've seen the amount of youth we've brought in. You know, we got that real solid central core to the team, and we want to build on that. And we need to play to do that. As I say, we were talking to loads of people about, you know, getting them signing up effectively on 18-month contracts now, you know, from now through to the end of the 21-22 season, because we want to build that stability. I think that's something we as a club have really missed in the last few years, is that, you know, it's been a different set of people turning up every year. Whereas actually you've now got a group of people who, those guys really seem to be playing for one another. It was interesting. I saw the guy interviewed after the Leicester City game the other day, and he was saying, you know, we may not spend big money and get all the big names in, but we're a team that's really fighting for each other, and we're playing our socks off for each other and as a team. And I have to say that really resonated for me with the way this team's playing at the moment. They do, you know, they're not shouting at each other. If somebody makes a mistake, somebody else goes and helps clear it up. And that's what we need to build. But to build it, you need to keep playing and just build that knowledge. And just disappointing that, you know, what you're hearing from me is my frustration at the fact that, you know, it's being called. And maybe I'm being too negative. Maybe in 2 weeks' time, you know, you've seen the number of cases has halved in terms of infections. So in 2 weeks' time, COVID may be less. They might be saying, well, look, you know, by the end of March, you probably get fans back in, you know, so maybe come March, you can get people, you know, paying behind closed doors for a month, and then get fans in for 2 months. And then, so you just need a little bit of funding to help you over that.
If the season does stop, there was £10 million of national lottery money that was put in to start with to get the season going in the first place. That would be.
Yeah, I actually used to work with the marketing director at Camelot, so I might get in touch with him and have a chat with him. He used to be in charge of brand and stuff at Santander when I was in charge of banking, so I might have a chat with him. But honestly, they've got no value out of that whatsoever, and stopping now, I just think is criminal. Although reality is over half of that money went to the leagues that's continuing, if you think about it. So, you know, the National League took the majority of that, so they are continuing, but there was no value to it. It just kind of says, well, you know, maybe what we need to be doing is finding funding for the National League North and South to continue. That would be obviously a significantly lower bill. but I don't have any problem with borrowing the money. You know, over the period, you know it's coming. You've got a budget for it. Deduct it out of the central amount that you give us. Fine. You know, we know where it's coming from. You know, we had a payment last April, May from the Premier League, an advance of what we'd normally get in September anyway. So we didn't really get any more this year. So that's kind of that's my thinking.
And also, I was thinking, do you think the National League needs to start testing players, because the Premier League and the EFL have got testing via the PFA, but there's no testing officially by the National League.
I can't, for myself, I'm struggling to understand. What do you get? You can test them twice a week. It means they isolate. Does that just mean the whole team isolates then? I haven't kind of worked out how it happens. You know, if somebody's feeling down and or they're in contact with somebody, they should be going to have a test. And that's what's happening with us. You know, we had another player this week who'd been in contact with somebody at work, who therefore they were being told from work, and they've had to go and get a test. So every time we've had a player that's had an incident like that, they've gone and got a test and isolated in the time being. I'm not quite sure what adding testing does, but maybe I'm being naive. So people may watch this thinking, "Oh, he's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about." I'm just struggling to rationalise it. Apart from the fact, I suppose, and therefore you can make proactive. You're not going to spread it to the other team. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing I can kind of see.
And the other thing I was thinking about was, I think it was the Dorking owner-manager, Mark White, made a good point about the split in the National League Premier as it is carrying on, but the National League North and South have suspended.
Well, he did ask that question. Yeah, I mean, before everything's been told we're all going to be treated the same, and then suddenly the National League changes its mind. Honestly, it's been a fascinating. Mark Ives has come in now. You know, let's give him a chance, see what he can kind of do. But honestly, the more I've become involved in football over the last few weeks, I've had some interesting challenges in the last few weeks about, those are the rules. You know, and we just seem to be unable to move forward as a sport and really grasp what people want. It's like, you know, we've been looking, I mean, you know, just putting it out there, you know, we've been looking at, is there a way we could set up like an under-23s or reserves or another team for next year to give a development pathway for our academy guys? And, you know, and it's like trying to find a league for them to play in. Yeah. That's been an interesting few conversations with representatives of local leagues. Honestly, it's so hard. You just got to be patient and start at the bottom. You know, so I've got people sitting on the bench for a step 2 team, and the best I think I managed to get somebody who'd take us at step 8. You know, it's like, it's just crazy. You know, nobody's working on development pathways. It's like, you know, it's you know, your reserves are effectively playing part football. It's just crazy. You know, I just think it's endemic within the system that you're starting to see in football. And you know, it's it's not computer says no, it's rule book says no. And there's no kind of, this is what we need to do to move our sport forward. And I'm not sleeping. You know, it's like I'm getting really frustrated with the whole thing. Let me look. I will find the money. Everybody will get paid. You know, on the 31st of this month. But after that, some of them people, you know, are going to have to. Unfortunately, we won't be able to keep going because the money's not coming in or the league stops, and that's not fair on those players. They committed to the year. We committed to them. Yeah, we can pay you some furlough money, but where's the rest of it going to come from?
Okay. Is there anything else you want to cover, Steve?
Sorry, Ben. No, I talk about all sorts. I have very positive things. You know, the real frustration is I felt we were really starting to gel as a team. You know, and you know, Charlie went back to Dartford, and you know, everybody was up in arms. Honestly, the reason we weren't talking about it was because we were he wanted to stay. You know, and we were negotiating. You don't go and talk about things and set precedent before, you just can't do that. So it was very delicate. And as I think Robbie said in his interview, it was, you know, until he was named on the team sheet, we were still hopeful he might come back. And we've got other bit, you know, great to see Jake Cass come in last week and do a job for us. You know, it'd be nice for him to stay for the season, but you know, and we were just really hopeful about creating some continuity in the rest of the season. And you know, in a way, I think the lads were quite relieved for a day off today, because Robbie did say they were tired after Tuesday night because they do run their socks off. But do you know what? That's probably what makes me proudest of the team at the moment. You know, if you think about in the past, you know, the number coming off the pitch and people giving them grief for not really caring. There ain't one player out there on that pitch who isn't caring about playing, you know, and that's all you can ask is play your best and do it.
And it was the first game we hadn't made a substitution since 2016. So
was it?
Robbie was working them hard.
To be honest, it was really frustrating. I feel that slightly sorry for Adam, you know, Little, who would naturally have come on normally. But when it's that tight and they're playing well as a group, and you also take the risk, you know, you can't pull them off. I know Robbie was frustrated also at St Albans game. He wanted to give, you know, Reggie and those guys a little run out. But he said when it's so finely balanced, you just can't. Why would you take the risk? And so, yeah, so he was all ready to do that. And then we didn't. But, you know, who would you have taken off and why? You know, I mean, yeah. Dylan, you know, your natural would be to take off Dylan. I thought he played a blinder on Tuesday night. So yeah, that's the hard one. You know, it's kind of hard. You want a bit of a squad, but you know, it's coming through and it's coming together. And I'm very proud of the style we're playing, the commitment of everybody's showing is just phenomenal. And I think that's possibly one of the reasons why I'm really disappointed if we have a curtailment or a null and voiding of the season.
Yeah. And talking about Dylan, he's on loan from a Football League club, so Oxford United are going to be frustrated he's not playing for, having more games. Yeah,
and you know, and we were obviously in discussions with keeping him to the end of the season because you know, give him a really good long run out, and regular football, which is I think something he really wants to do, and I think he's getting better and better every game as well. The more he's getting into it. I think he's frustrating. He's not scoring every game, but you know, if you look at what he's doing with defences, he's just creating so much space for everybody else. You know, and that's half the job, isn't it? And laying it on that cross for Adam to score on Tuesday night was fantastic. You know, so yeah, it is frustrating. It's frustrating for everybody. But let's see what happens when they make their announcement. You know, hopefully I think they said next week we might hear something. But I think we're in the hands of the National League at the moment, and some of our other clubs at our level who are saying they don't want to keep going. I suppose the challenge becomes that is there an option, and I nearly talked to people about doing this in when we didn't start in October. Was if the league said you're not starting, should we just form our own mini league just to have some games and play? You know, and give the fans something to watch. And maybe that's what we need to do. Obviously you wouldn't be allowed to play under the COVID restrictions around sport, but as soon as that's lifted, you know, let's talk to St Albans and Eastbourne and those guys saying, look, why don't we set up our own, you know, mini league over, you know, April, May, June, you know, and actually get some football in and have some matches, and those that don't want to play, don't play. But us that want to continue, let's continue. Let's organise something ourselves, you know, because people want to see football, you know, and actually reality is I've contracted, most of our players are contracted to the end of June anyway. So, because we wanted to go on to 12-month contracts, and I'm hoping most of them stay next year. So it doesn't make any difference to me. We'll keep playing and give the fans something to come and watch and support, you know, a little mini tournament. I think it could be good. But I just think we need to be creative, create something that we can keep the fans engaged with and enable us to keep going in whatever means we can.
Okay, Steve, plenty of interesting stuff in there. Thanks for joining us, and let's hope we maybe be able to play again maybe our next game will be Billericay on the 8th of February.
Yeah, I think
after
that one's
this
going to be
2
quite
weeks.
that could be quite testy, that one, couldn't it?
Yeah.
I can see some challenges there.
Okay, Steve, thanks for joining us today, and
Right.
let's hope for good news in the future.
Thanks, Ben. Cheers. Have you stopped recording?